Welcome to Unmasked and Thriving, the podcast. My name is TD. I am your host. Today's episode is called When the World Listens to You. There is a kind of power that doesn't come from intelligence or talent or hard work. A kind of power that comes from something far more ordinary, money and skin. Two things that for many people decide how the world will treat you before you even speak. Today I want to talk about the quiet advantage some people carry, not because they are evil, but because society has been trained to favor them. Because the truth is, some people walk through this world with doors opening, and others walk through the same world with doors locked, guarded and bolted. And the tragedy is not that privilege exists. The tragedy is when those who have privilege pretend they don't. Let me say this in a way that might sting, but it's true. Some people live in the same nation as the poor, but in a completely different country. They drive on the same roads, but they don't experience the same potholes. They breathe the same air, but they don't breathe the same fear. They go to the same police station, but they are treated differently. They go to the same hospital, but they are not sent to the same line. They speak the same language, but their words carry far more weight, because the world does not treat everyone equally. It never has, and pretending it does is a luxury. Money is not just comfort. Money is a microphone. When you have money, you don't just buy things, you buy responsiveness, you buy urgency, you buy attention. When a rich person complains, the manager comes out. When a poor person complains, security comes out. When a rich person cries, people call it distress. When a poor person cries, people call it drama. When a rich person is angry, people say he is a serious man. When a poor person is angry, people say he is aggressive. Same emotions, different interpretations. Because money edits how society reads you. It cleans your voice. It makes your pain sound more respectable. And if you are wealthy enough, even your mistakes are called misunderstandings. But when you are poor, your mistakes become criminal behavior. And then there is the other privilege, the one people don't like naming because it makes them uncomfortable. Skin. In many parts of the world, and especially in countries shaped by colonialism and apartheid, skin color operates like a passport. It determines the assumptions people make about you. Whether you are trusted, whether you are feared, whether you are welcomed, whether you are suspected, whether you are protected, or whether you are punished. Sometimes you don't even need evidence. You just need your face, and they will decide who you are. So yes, there are those who walk through this life with privilege in their pockets, and there are those who walk through the same life with privilege in their skin. And the world hears them differently. Now let me be clear. You did not choose your parents, you did not choose your inheritance, you did not choose the history that shaped society's preferences. But what you do choose is whether you will acknowledge it. Because privilege becomes dangerous when it becomes invisible. And invisible privilege produces arrogant people. People who genuinely believe they deserve everything they have. They even say, I earned all of this. If others are struggling, it's because they are lazy. But you see, that is not always true. Sometimes people are not poor because they lack effort. And sometimes people are poor because the system has been designed to exhaust them. They are running, but they are running on sand. And you are running, but you are running on a tar road. Both are running. The other finishes with breath, whilst the other finishes with blood. So what is the moral issue here? It is not that people have more. The moral issue here is when those who have more become blind, when they stop seeing how others are treated, when they stop caring about how others are suffering, when they stop listening, and then they begin to speak like this again. I don't know why people complain. I don't see race here. I don't see class here. I don't see inequality. No, you don't see it because you are not forced to. That's the difference. The poor see inequality every day, every morning, when they wake up and the electricity is gone. When they wake up, the taxi fare has increased. When they wake up, the taps are dry. When they wake up and the job application requires a smartphone, which they don't have. When they wake up and their child needs a uniform that they can't afford. The poor do not have a luxury of denial. Denial is a privilege. If you are rich, understand that your voice carries further. If your skin color grants you credibility, understand that people believe you faster. If you walk into spaces and you are treated with respect automatically, understand that you have access. And access is not a decoration. Access is responsibility. Because there are people who have been screaming for years. And society has trained itself not to hear them. And then you come along, you whisper the same message, and suddenly it becomes a valid concern. That is the injustice. But it is also the opportunity. Because if the world listens to you, then your silence becomes betrayal and your speech becomes power. One of the cruelest things privileged people do is this. They watch suffering like entertainment. They declare that poverty is people's own making. They debate poverty like it is theory. They discuss inequality like it is a political debate. But for the poor, inequality is not a debate. It is their lungs, it is their stomach, it is their school fees, it is their safety, it is their burial society, it is their children going to bed without supper, it is their mother crying quietly in the kitchen. So, if you are privileged, don't become a spectator. Don't become a commentator. Don't become someone who talks about the poor but never speaks for them when it matters the most. Because it is possible to be educated and still be useless. It is possible to be rich and still be irrelevant. It is possible to have influence and still be silent. And silence in the presence of injustice is not neutrality, it is alignment. Now let me give you a better picture. Privilege should not be a throne. Privilege should be a bridge that allows you to carry the unheard into spaces they cannot access, a bridge that allows you to bring the ignored into rooms where decisions are made, a bridge that allows you to say, before we approve this budget, what about the township? Before we celebrate this success, what about the informal settlement? Before we speak about progress, what about the children who still walk to school for 5 kilometers? Before we call this a free country, what about the families still living in poverty, still living like prisoners? You don't have to be a hero, but you can be the interruption. You can be the voice that makes a meeting uncomfortable. You can be the person who refuses to let injustice be normalized. And this is important. Speaking for the poor does not mean speaking over them. does not mean turning their pain into your project. It does not mean using their suffering to build your personal brand. No. It means you create space. You open doors. You use your privilege to make sure they are present. You recommend them. You refer them. You share opportunities. You shift resources. You challenge stereotypes. You correct lies when people generalize. Not all people in the township are criminals. Not all youth in the township are careless. Not all people are lazy. Not all immigrants are the problem. You refuse to let the room speak in lazy language because lazy language produces lazy thinking, and lazy thinking produces violent policies. Some of you are listened to in ways you don't even realize. When you call, people answer. When you complain, people adjust. When you request, people respond. And maybe you have not noticed, because it has always been like that for you. But now that you know, you cannot pretend you don't. Now that you know, you are accountable, because awareness changes everything. The moment you become aware of your privilege, you inherit responsibility. Not guilt, responsibility. Let me end with this. The true measure of a human being is not how high they rise, but what they do once they are high. Because there are people who rise and then pull the ladder up. They rise and then mock those below. They rise and then preach about hard work. They rise and then rewrite history as if nobody helped them. But the noble ones are those who rise and then reach back down. Those who rise and then remember where the ground is. Those who rise and still keep their humanity. So if you are rich, if your skin color gives you advantage, if society listens to you quickly, then understand this. You were not placed there only for yourself. Your voice can be used to defend those whose voices are treated like noise. Your access can be used to open doors for those whose knocks are ignored. Your comfort can be used to challenge the systems that keep others uncomfortable. And yes, you walk this world differently. So walk responsibly. Because one day, history will ask you, when you had advantage, did you become a wall or did you become a bridge? Till next time.
Thanks for joining us on Unmasked and Thriving. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone carrying silent grief or sacred fire. Subscribe, review. Come back next week. Come walk with us in the abundance, authority, and victory of eternal life.